Hi, it's Reggie James, Director, Lone Star Chapter of Sierra Club, back to talk to you about some issues that are heating up. I won't talk about the weather again. You can go outside and see how that is. But we have a couple of hot issues going on right now. And they're issues that really illustrate why it's so important to prevent problems, because it's so costly to clean them up, if we can even clean them up. One involves what will be the largest ethane cracker in the world that's going to be built just outside of Corpus Christi. This is a plant that would produce plastic beads for export to China, a lot of other areas of Asia, and some other parts of the world. And unfortunately, that same area of Texas along the coast, all the way toward Louisiana, is the home of the largest petrochemical complex in the country. And there's lots of these plastics and chemical plants being built. And the communities have to suffer the consequences of these being nearby. There are schools in the area. Right around this plant that's being proposed, there's a large multifamily low-income housing development also. This plant would use millions of gallons of water a day. So we have that challenging a community that's trying to deal with their own water needs. And also it would, the wastewater from the plant would contaminate Capano Bay, which is a sensitive wildlife area with whooping cranes. It's a breeding ground for shrimp, which is critical to the fishing industry and for the tourist industry. Another big concern that we have is just the plastics industry. We'd really like to focus a lot more attention to alternatives to plastic. We've got huge problems, from islands of plastic in the ocean to wildlife that ingests the plastic, gets tangled up in plastic. It's persistent in the environment. It's filling up landfills. So we really need to look for alternatives so that we don't need to have these plants. Right? We're opposing the permit, but even if we can't stop the plant, we want to ensure that the permit provides the greatest amount of protection for the community so that they're not exposed to an unreasonable amount of pollution. Benzene, other pollutants that we know are going to come from the plant. A good example of why prevention is so important is in the Donna Reservoir area of South Texas in the Rio Grande Valley. There's a reservoir there that has been contaminated by polychlorinated biphenyls, PCBs. PCBs were used in electrical and industrial applications years ago, before it was known that they were a definite human carcinogen and cause other non-cancer harms in humans. Regulators learned that the fish in the Donna Reservoir were contaminated with PCBs as long ago as 1993. Yet it's only just now that EPA has a proposed cleanup plan. Taken some efforts, but none of the efforts have been effective. So EPA has designated this area a Superfund site, and they have a proposal to totally drain the reservoir, remove the contaminated soil, and also fix the pipe that's the suspected source of the contamination. The comment period for EPA Superfund cleanup runs until June the 5th this year. We're supporting the local groups that are working on this and other groups, Low Income Housing Information Service, ARISE. There are a few other groups that want to have the very strongest public protection program in place, which is ensuring that we're monitoring what EPA is doing on the PCB cleanup, that we're doing effective public education so that people are aware of what other contaminants are there and that they can actually monitor what EPA is doing and the local regulators. And we want to ensure that there are tests being done on people and on the surrounding environment to ensure there aren't other contaminants that might be a risk to the population in the area, to the community. And this is why it's so important for us on the front end to try to reduce these risks. because we know that it's the low-income communities, communities of color, that are going to receive the least attention. So in this kind of an area where the community has been exposed to environmental contaminants for a long time, and it's taken the regulators too long to address it, we want to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks.